Chapter 7. Answers. Why had it taken so long for me to know my inner self? I had an epiphany that I experienced delayed work on self-awareness because I was too busy doing what I thought at the time was necessary, holding a family together, holding a marriage together, working exhaustingly hard to blend in with the world. I did not discover self-inquiry until years later, but I was not ready for that yet. It all unfolded perfectly. Alone one night, determined once and for all to know the answer about this body's issues, I thought about how I feel in social situations and how the number one criticism from people in my life always concerned my social capabilities. I started by searching social anxiety and introverted tendencies. I perused a list of social-related disorders. My eyes hovered over ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and the term no longer used by doctors, Asperger's syndrome. No, definitely not, I told the computer aloud. I looked at all the other options. They fit me somewhat, but I watched as my hand clicked the ASD link. At the end of the article, it suggested a quiz from Cambridge, the AQ test. I took it. The result said I most likely have it, but only a doctor can diagnose it. What? I sat there in shock. My jaw fell open. It was as if something had knocked the wind out of me. My face felt hot. I looked up blogs by people who were diagnosed with it. That was all I needed to be convinced. It was like they had been inside my head. Wow. I sent an email to my parents, brother, and the guy from relationship number 2 also, since he has therapist training. I explained what I thought I might have. I said I loved myself no matter what, of course. In fact, I felt a deeper love for myself because I realized life had not been easy, and now I didn't have to be so hard on myself. I was not lazy or purposefully antisocial after all. My brain was just wired differently. It certainly did not mean I would be using the label to excuse poor behavior. I had always done my best and would continue to do so. My brother responded to say he works with autistic kids a little bit in his teaching job and they lack empathy. He added he could not diagnose me, but that was his opinion on it. He didn't think that was my issue. He suggested perhaps it was introversion due to our childhood with lack of honesty between adults. I figured he would know better than me because he worked with students that had a diagnosis. He was around it every day. So instead of investigating further, I decided to leave the answer to just being an introvert and did so for an entire year. Still, I knew that meant I would never be an extrovert. The internet was full of stories written by introverts who had tried their whole lives to transition to extrovert status, but what they were actually doing was trying to be something other than what they were naturally. Introverts just have a shorter fuse where social activity is concerned. The number one thing not to do to an introvert, it said, is try to change them. I could not agree more there. There was an incident with chocolate that happened during this time. I have always loved chocolate. I knew I had a sensitivity to caffeine due to heart palpitations in the past, so I didn't consume it except for my favorite food, chocolate. I preferred milk chocolate anyway, which is not as concentrated as dark or raw chocolate. I figured that could be my one exception. One night, my beloved and I were at a health food restaurant with a group of friends. I had already eaten, so I just ordered a tiny scoop of raw cacao ice cream. About 20 minutes later, my stomach started to burn and I felt queasy and lightheaded. I decided to excuse myself to drive home, which was just a mile away. I did not want to get sick or faint in front of everyone and embarrass myself, and it felt like I might need a private bathroom in the near future. I only made it as far as sitting in my car. I was so dizzy that I didn't feel it was safe to drive. My entire intestinal tract was on fire and cramping hard. My face and hands were very tingly. It was so much stimulation all at once. I was so uncomfortable that I was writhing and moaning. Suddenly, I felt I was about to leave my body. I truly felt I was dying. Death by chocolate, how ironic, I thought. They'll find my body in my car in the morning and wonder what happened. More time passed and I couldn't move. I was tense with pain, waiting to see what happened next. I saw my beloved and our friends all say their goodbyes in the parking lot. They didn't seem to notice my car was still there, but it was dark. I got a text when my beloved got home asking where I was. I could barely text back. In very elementary and jumbled terms, I let him know I was not feeling good, that it was not safe for me to drive, and I would be home when I felt better. He offered to come get me, but by then the symptoms were beginning to lift slightly, so I decided to wait it out. I sat there for half an hour before starting up the car. Later, I went to see a doctor who specializes in allergies. She was able to figure out that I have a chocolate/caffeine allergy and also surmised that I had a panic attack during the allergic episode. I had no idea what that was supposed to feel like, but after reading about it, I think she was right. She also intuitively noted that emotionally, I did not know who I was and should probably figure that out soon. I agreed. A full year had passed since I had learned about ASD. I got another nagging urge to look into it. I felt sure that I had it when I ran across a diagnosed woman's blog online. Her website featured an unofficial list of over 150 traits for adult females with ASD. I identified with 97% of them. That was when I knew without a doubt. After all this time of feeling unsure, I was finally ready to accept it. I read about how most adult females with ASD mask their traits to fit in better. No wonder I came across as inauthentic. I had been acting my whole life without even knowing it. To some degree, we all do this to fit in, but I related to it so deeply. I still did not seek a diagnosis right away. I was unsure if it would be helpful, so I forgot about it for a while. Another few months went by. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there was another nagging urge. Seek a diagnosis. No explanation, just do it. I told myself perhaps it would be helpful to be open to resources down the road should I ever need them. I searched online and found estimates of around $5,000 for a proper diagnosis. Without insurance, I thought it was hopeless. Still, I found a list of doctors in my area that could diagnose adults. Slim pickings. A name jumped off the page at me. This doctor was 4 hours away, and she had over 20 years of experience as a neuropsychologist. I didn't really want to call, but the urge was strong. Just get a price quote, it said. The woman on the phone quoted me $750. Now that I could do. I made the appointment and received an email with forms to fill out. When I printed them and started filling out all my symptoms and experiences related to ASD, I could not believe how many hidden quirks and forgotten memories came up I had completely forgotten about. I filled just about every page, front and back, most of which I have mentioned in this book. Here's a short list of memories and realizations that came to me. 1. I was in survival mode ever since I left the security of marriage. 2. I have always needed very specific instructions for many tasks. 3. I have had poor communication due to poor emotional awareness and maturity. 4. I refuse to socialize and go mute if I feel threatened in any way. 5. I had acted my whole life in 2 ways, pretending the family is okay and masking my ASD traits. 6. It is hard for me to hear one conversation in a loud place because my brain is trying to catalog it all. 7. I have to remind myself to shower and look presentable. 8. I have a loss of appetite when criticized. All functions shut down until I can cry out the stress in a private setting. 9. Confusion occurs when I am receiving or around criticism, yelling, loud noises, or jokes that go over my head. I'm better at detecting sarcasm as an adult, but I don't always catch it. 10. I love true stories or documentaries. 11. I obsess for a long time on what to eat or not eat for perfect health. 12. Making eye contact causes me to lose my train of thought, and I must look away to concentrate on what I am saying. It's like visual noise to me. 13. I like to eat one item at a time on my plate, just the way I like to finish whatever I start. A book, a project, a conversation, or a movie. I don't like starting something I cannot finish. 14. Tactile sensitivity, such as clothing tags, scratchy sweaters, wet hair, slimy gunk, cotton balls, and microfiber towels. 15. Auditory sensitivity such as yelling, bass vibrations, idling trucks, babies crying, big crowds with cackling laughter, and barking or yappy dogs. 16. I don't actually like hugging people unless it's my primary person or my parents. 17. I practice minimalism because clutter in my space makes my brain feel cluttered. It's more to keep track of. That is why I love simplicity, less work for the brain. Rather than laziness, it is a preventative measure to being overloaded to the breaking point. 18. Past obsessions have been songs and lyrics, karaoke, near-death experiences, men, real or fantasized, metaphysics, crypto coin, art, sewing, photography, puzzles, acai bowls, always prepared the same way, and the just be practice. These can last years, months, or days. Then I can drop them suddenly without reason. 19. In art and music, I am great at copying others' creations, but creating my own is harder. 20. I am easily mesmerized by things such as watching fire burn, rotating machinery, colors mixing, etc. 21. I see things in my head such as how to spell a word, how mechanical things work, and eyeballing how to fix things, which angle they need to be, or fit things in unique spaces. It's like I have a literal understanding of the physics of how things will play out under certain situations. 22. I have been guilty of repeating jokes or movie quotes too much. 23. I used to separate building blocks by color and make monochromatic houses. I would do the same with colored candy, eating the piles in order of size from smallest to biggest. 24. Just existing in a body is work. Appearing normal is work. Hugging or touching a person outside of my bubble is work. Reaching out to others in any way is work. Living with another person in my space is work. Making an effort to go out to a social function is work. Alone equals refreshing. Social activity equals draining. 25. Throat tightening or other discrete quirks have replaced the head tick. I might fiddle with any little thing I can find, such as a hair clip or a clicky pin, etc. 26. In my head, I love to add numbers and easily find visual patterns or shapes in walls and rugs. I will count stairs as I climb them, or letters of words on my fingers. 27. I will often pick at my skin or scalp if there is anything preventing it from being smooth. I call this getting scratchies. 28. I have been frustrated in the past as being intelligent but too overwhelmed by stimuli to use that intelligence effectively or long term. 29. A long workday in an office followed by a social function leaves me looking like a robot with no expression, uninterested, rude, inauthentic, or stuck up. My masking ability drops away as the overloaded brain shuts down. Whoever brought me along is embarrassed and wondering if they should just take me home. If the mask remains, I might seem too eager or fake during conversation. 30. Others mention they see me as childlike, innocent, and vulnerable. This could be because I use a sing-song voice often. 31. I love to play multiplayer games by myself. 32. I have had phases of wearing just one color at a time, white, gray, green, etc. 33. If I find a video channel I like, I will usually watch all their videos. I rarely leave something unfinished. 34. I often laugh at jokes before the punchline is delivered. I am just trying to appear normal. 35. I used to feel extremely uneasy and territorial when others would enter my home, my comfort bubble of silence and aloneness. This has improved with maturity and the knowing they will eventually leave. The next order of business was to switch jobs. The hotel's multitasking demands had gotten out of hand. I always did my job with as little complaining as possible, but now I knew I needed a whole new environment. It was time to start honoring the body's needs. Once I had another job lined up, I put in my 2-week notice at the hotel, explaining what I thought I had, which was why I had to leave, to have a quiet and calm job. The owner came over to speak with me. He said, "But you seem so normal." I was prepared for this. It is a very common reaction. Yes, but adult females mask their symptoms to survive in society. It's not sustainable long term, though. I can keep it together here, but at home, I can't enjoy my free time because I spend all my brain power handling everything at work. All I can do at home is rest in preparation for the next day of work. I felt he was trying to understand but just lacked awareness of the condition's spectrum of multiple representations. He said, "You know, our daughter had a phase where she thought she had every condition she read about. Maybe that's what you're doing with this condition." Wow. Rather than be offended at the fact that he didn't believe me or counter back, I told him about my upcoming doctor appointment. He said he hoped everything would work out for me, and if there was anything he could do to make me stay, he would. I told him half-jokingly that if he needed a new dishwasher to work during the breakfast service, I would gladly come back. He said he and his wife felt like they were losing a daughter. It was very sweet. I said I would miss them too, and that I appreciated all they had done for me. On my last day, I got hefty gift cards to very nice local restaurants from all the staff, manager, and owners. It was a lovely farewell gesture. I was literally 5 minutes from walking out the door when angry guests came in to yell at me. The couple wanted their room way earlier than check-in time, and we were doing our best to meet their demands. Since the manager was right there to bid me farewell, he handled it. Normally that would have been up to me to handle and most likely would have ruined my afternoon and evening, but instead I laughed with the manager and another coworker. "Well, that's my cue to leave and a validation that it was the right decision for me," I exclaimed gleefully. We all found it hilarious. I walked out the door with no regrets. I had lasted there 6 years and had done my very best. Then came the big day, the doctor appointment, the appointment I had been waiting for my entire life. I was nervous to be scrutinized and tested for 3 hours, but it meant finally getting an answer, so I did it. The doctor was very nice and accepting to my relief, and we had a long discussion about my life. She promised to read all of my written examples on my form while I did testing sessions with her assistant. The doctor also supervised the beginning of each test to explain each one to me personally. There were cognitive tests and written tests. The hard one for me was the emotional recognition test. I was surprised looking at photos of people that I could not quite decipher between anger and confusion, for example. One woman looked kind of angry but had wrinkles on her face. So was it wrinkles or was she mad? I couldn't tell. Maybe she was just tired. I never would have pegged myself as not being able to tell what someone was feeling, but my eyes were suddenly open to the subtle differences of what emotions can look like and how they differ from person to person. I had to wait 2 weeks to get the results of my testing. I tried not to ruminate about it. I was pretty busy anyway, learning the ropes at my new job. I didn't tell my new boss about the potential diagnosis because I figured it was my responsibility to get a job suited for my brain's needs. If the job was impossible for me due to the brain's needs, then I would tell him and see how we might alter the requirements if at all possible. Finally, the suspense was over. The doctor had ruled out ADD, attention deficit disorder, cognitive impairment, and PTSD, something she agreed I probably had in the past but have healed from. She confirmed high-functioning ASD diagnosis along with SAD, social anxiety disorder. The two pretty much go hand in hand from what I have read in other people's writings. She gave me a copy of her report and some resources for anti-anxiety practices. After the appointment, I cried tears of relief. I thought of all the confusing times in my life when I was feeling like an outcast, all the social difficulties and sensitivities I experienced. Sometimes just existing in a physical reality felt like it was too much. So at least now, I no longer had to worry about what was different about me. That question is what pushed me to see a doctor in the first place. Now I could love myself for all my quirks and not need to change a thing. Loving myself gave me the permission to grow if it came about naturally. If not, I still loved myself no matter what. No more wondering if I was just lazy or shy or stuck up or manipulative or inauthentic. I was not less than anyone else or something to be fixed. I wasn't even the labels the doctor assigned, but they did allow me to feel self-respect and compassion for all I have achieved in spite of the brain's wiring, which makes certain things difficult at times. I was able to know this body and personality fully, what it needs and what it does not need. And for whatever socially unacceptable quirks it may have, it also has really cool abilities and a sweet, non-judgmental, unconditionally loving nature. I'll take it. I will love it, nurture it, and allow it to be exactly what it is. I will not let the label define me or be an excuse for poor behavior as a being. It's just a term to use to explain the brain. That is all. My confidence and sense of self-worth have soared ever since diagnosis day. I emailed my old boss, the guy from relationship number 2, my brother, and my parents to share the news since they had all been a part of the conversation. The old boss said he was glad I found an answer. My brother said the same. Relationship number 2 guy was very supportive and helpful. My parents were also supportive. They agreed that all people have different abilities and quirks, and that is okay. It felt good to have a support system of people I have known for years. I felt so grateful and blessed. I was so nervous to tell my beloved what I thought I had and about my appointment for a diagnosis. He was not one to stop trying to help me just because there was a label to categorize my nature. At the time, he thought I could still change it if I just tried harder. That evening, we were going to dinner when he asked how the appointment went. I told him the doctor confirmed what I already knew and listed the diagnoses. I remained my calmest, as I knew he was not a fan of labels. He did express concern about how labels can create identities one might cling to and cause one to regress spiritually, but I assured him that was not what I was doing. Just because others with labels might do that, it does not mean we all do it. I was confident in knowing exactly what I was in both body and spirit. I made it clear that the body and its personality have their limits, and that is okay. They may improve or not, but that has nothing to do with who I really am. I still recognize my higher self as the infinite oneness we all are, as the ultimate truth. But now I honor what the body's needs are the moment they show up. If someone had a broken leg, should they rip their cast off lest it limit their movement? Not before it's healed. Confidence in who and what I am is the key to attracting only the best and most loving people into my life. The irony of creative expansion happening within myself now, only after acceptance of the self, is not lost on me. That was what my beloved had wanted to see all along. It just had to manifest in its own way and in its own time. A flower cannot be opened prematurely by prying apart closed petals. It happens when it's time for it to happen. I am very lucky that we both prefer separate bedrooms. After our first year of sleeping in the same bed, we realized our sleep quality is much better when sleeping alone. This setup allows me to have my own room, which is very valuable to me when I need to be alone or meditate on my own. With loving support, a calmer job, and honestly being myself, I am able to be far more social and creative instead of being in survival mode all the time. For the first time since age 4, I feel like I'm thriving again. Friends of my beloved have welcomed me into their creative group, and the creative energy is working through me by osmosis. I am creating just for fun. It feels wonderful to be supported by a new circle of friends who care deeply about one another with acceptance and love. We all want only the highest good for each of us.